Hi, welcome to the Global Politics Case Study Snippet class. Today we would be covering the case study related to war crimes. War crime, this can be studied under human rights as well as under peace and conflict. So the case study today what we are going to cover is of Syrian war crimes. Let's get started. Okay, so here is my pen tool. Human rights violations in Syria have been brutal from all stakeholders involved. The Assad regime has been accused of using chemical weapons against the rebels and civilians. The government has allegedly engaged in indiscriminate aerial bombing and flash strikes, which have caused countless civilian deaths. The Syrian army is the main rebel group fighting against the government, has also been accused of recruiting child soldiers as young as in their early teens to pick up arms and rebel against the government. To analyze the conflict before anything, one must look at the fact that the uprising in 2011, fueled by the Arab Spring, was based on grounds of the relative deprivation theory. An authoritarian government was causing hardships for the general population who felt deprived of common human necessities and resources. Not only did they feel deprived, there was also a sentiment that they deserved better than what the government was delivering. These two components fall under the relative deprivation theory, which can explain why the general public took to the streets to protest or even retaliate against the government. The state's response to such an uprising was oppressive and brutal in nature, which gave birth to a cycle of conflict in the country. This cycle of conflict ensured their escalation was fundamental to this conflict. Such escalations consummated into the use of chemical weapons from the government and committing a war crime. The concept of war crime was introduced. Now, after this case study, this is about the concept of the war crime. The concept of war crime, give me a second. The concept of war crime was introduced as a strategy to counter the pre-existent concept of the victor's justice. Victor's justice accounted for the fact that you would only get trialed on your crimes if you lose the conflict in which you committed them. If you were to win it and be the victor, it is most likely that your crimes will go unpunished. This idea was challenged by the introduction of war crimes, which can hold both individuals and states responsible for committing brutal atrocities on non combatant subjects or for committing any other war crime. The ICC and ICJ were also set up, which are to follow the rules and guidelines put down by the Geneva Convention. However, I would still argue that punishment for war crimes can still be trumped by your hegemonic status or power and influence in the international system. Powerful states or individuals, that means authoritarian rulers, are still in reality seldom tried. Guantanamo Bay is an example that still exists today. Not only states with power don't get trialed, they possess immense influence over the trial of other states. I hope you understood the concept of war crime and the case studies attached to this one, which is Syrian civil war. I would be covering further topic exclusively only on the war crime and Geneva Convention. See you again. Stay safe and stay happy.